So with spoiler season for Karlov Manor upon us, it's easy to get excited for the new set and for the future of Magic in its many formats. Even the most casual player gets excited for preview season, right? We get to watch our favorite content creators participate in early access. We see them present preview cards for the community, brimming with excitement and positive feelings, getting to really be the next creator validated by the mothership at Wizards for supporting this game for them. It's an understatement to say Magic has truly the oddest relationship between content creators and the product itself. Some are selected as ambassadors, getting official product releases and advice on how to create content in this sphere free of charge. Now, do they have any responsibility to the community? Any more than the role of us unofficial content creators do in supporting the game no matter what? What about us? We are called the MTG Rebellion for a reason. And it's really times like these when corporate decisions unmask Wizards' true intentions for its content creators are truly when we're forced to step up and say something. I'm Max Damage. Today we're headed underground as official support from the mothership officially dries up. Find out what happened on today's Rebelcast episode 33, The Rebellion Goes Underground. Let's get right into it. Let's begin by introducing our guest for today. We have with us today Athena the Bun, making her second appearance on the cast. How are you today, Athena?
I'm doing pretty good. College classes started today, so I've been busy working on that after my stream. So yeah, that's gonna keep my attention for a good amount of the next 3 months ish.
But yeah, I work on a college campus, and for me, it's been hectic as well. I totally get it. Lots of students came back and needed to use the library for some reason. So I've been dealing with that. We also have with us today Griffin Ryder. What's been going on in your corner of the world, Griff?
I'm finally wrapping up a very long holiday season, a lot of family obligations that need to be taken care of, and I'm ready to kick off standard RCQ season.
Oh yeah,
We're gonna get some Rakdos sleeved up, and we're gonna do the things.
that sounds good. That sounds good, and that sounds like a good archetype to go with, honestly. We do have lots to get into today, and I want to begin with a recent announcement, or rather confirmation of what we already knew. Wizards has canceled the streamer event, formerly known as Early Access for Karlov Manor. You know, some of my best content creator experiences have revolved around sharing my love for this game at Early Access events. I can't say how much, personally, for me, it was a thrill to show up, play against the likes of Ali Eldrazi, Cover Go Blue, Carlo Favretto. Being able to compete against these guys really had me starstruck in the moment. But also, if I'm being honest, I'm being myself. It allowed me to finally play and beat some of these guys live, which was a huge thing for me when it happened that way. I mean, it was a dream come true. What did these events mean to you? What does this mean for the future of MTG, especially on Arena? Should we care that these events are gone? Will they really be back, like they say, for Thunder Junction? Go in, Griff. Let us know what your take is on all of this. What's going on?
So yeah, this was the worst kept secret of the past few months. We all knew when Wizards fired the person in charge of early access that our days were numbered. And I honestly, this was one of the things I looked forward to every set. Getting to play cards before anybody else did, getting to try out new strategies, find new combos, play against some of these people that I really look up to in the content creator sphere. That it doesn't happen because, I'm nowhere near on their radar. But I mean, it is what it is at this point, and I want to be optimistic, but knowing how WotC has handled these things in the past, I would not be surprised if we're in for big changes if and when early access comes back, and maybe some of us, smaller folks trying to claw our way up, might get left out.
Yeah, that's the rumor. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. It's just a rumor. But don't be surprised. I like to call it when I can if in the future a lot of us are left out, including myself, and this becomes either an MTG ambassador only event or it becomes, you know, something that's invite only. Either way, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, or it's all altogether canceled. Now, Athena, you've yet to take part in these. I know, you know, we were actually kind of hoping you could be there with us on the next one. You know, be a part of our streamer showdown for early access. What does it mean to you, somebody who's just starting out on content creation, that these are in question now for the foreseeable future, and really as a viewer too? Did you ever watch early access?
So every early access, I've kind of done the same thing where I've pulled up Twitch channels or YouTube streams or whatever, wherever people are streaming on, especially all the big names, and just watching as many of the streams as I can, like multi-Twitch open and like seeing as many of these screens as possible, just so I can kind of get like a feel for the first things I'm going to craft and the first things I'm going to try out. Because I mean, we all have limited wildcards, right?
Yeah.
So I was really hoping that I might be able to have this one as my first one. Um, Especially like after like for the Lost Caverns early access. I mean, I was there with like all the Rebellion members watching every single one of your streams and like, you know, either like submitting deck lists or throwing in an opinion here or there, and I ended up making some of the lists that ended up on State of the Meta's like Brewer's Corner from right after the set dropped, because I just had so many ideas from seeing the cards that did really well. I wanted a chance to be able to try it for myself, but I don't think that's going to happen for quite a long time. I don't imagine the early access event is coming back in time for Thunder Junction, and if it
Mm.
does, then it's probably just going to be all the higher ups, like all the ones that all the like the big names, I guess,
The
of Magic the
heavies.
Gathering streaming. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen, right? I really want to be wrong about this. I truly want to be wrong, because it was a great opportunity for the community to come around Arena in particular as a platform, being able to show off things earlier than anybody else. And, you know, Arena release is earlier than the official release still, right? I think Karlov Manor's coming out on the 6th for Arena and the 9th officially for paper. But I mean, still, that's, you know, we got to have some kind of ability to view and not just view these cards, but view how they're played. But in any case, thank you for speaking on this. I just looking at social media, I got the general vibe that no one wanted to appear too negative in the creator sphere about this online. I saw some disappointed reactions, right? Those were typical, especially from creators that had participated before, but no one really wanted to show that they were pissed off, if I'm being frank. I've always said Wizards has a really strange relationship with its content creators. Some of the biggest ones get to have, for example, I'm not going to name any names, but some of the biggest ones get to have negative opinions, you know, and they really get to farm reactions and engagement from that without so much as really a second look from Wizards as to whether they should keep sponsoring them or keep getting officially placed at events. And then the positive mid-sized creators are rewarded for only spinning positive news and spinning MTG news in a positive way. Whether, you know, it's because they're MTG ambassadors or they get some kind of official support. And I just don't get it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think some of my audience agrees with me. I truly don't get it. It's a tough dance we have to learn to get official support from the mothership. And if I'm being myself, again, I'm kind of fed up with that rat race. So honestly, I'd rather much more rather make content with a candid spin than try to seem like I'm either supporting everything that they do or, you know, bashing them whenever it benefits me to have views. So with regard to early access, I really do hope it returns. I really hope I'm wrong. I hope this is really just because they fired that whole team, right? And that they're planning on in somehow, some way to bring it back. But I have to take this second. I think you guys will agree with me, especially Griff. Shout out to Jesse Hill, for being so awesome when he was running things for early access. He literally bent over backwards to make sure that things went off without a hitch, to make sure that creators were satisfied. It's really sad to see him get fired for doing a job his job really well, right? A job well done, being rewarded with getting fired. It's kind of odd, to say the least.
Yeah, nothing but love and respect for what Jesse did for us. He went so far above and beyond what he needed to do for those events, and it It really feels like a stab in the back that WotC did absolutely nothing to defend him and make sure
Yeah.
the content creators were still taken care of after all this.
Yeah, they could have done so much more. Either way, world keeps turning, right? We're really just a small voice in this space. But just to kind of reiterate, I'd rather us be ourselves than cater to anyone's particular feelings on the matter, especially Wizards. But viewers, let us know in the comments what you think. Did you watch Early Access when it was around? What about it will you miss if it's truly gone? Do you think they'll bring it back for Thunder Junction? I truly hope so. Let us know in the comments. Let's move on to our new segment, which we started naming. I'm going to call this the Rebel Informer. Picture of the card up on the screen now. Let's start with some spoilers for Karlov Manor. And we'll do this in an interesting kind of way. We each picked our favorite spoilers from spoiler season. Karlov Manor introduces it's interesting to note that Hasbro owns Clue, right? So they're kind of shuffling that into the game, and Karlov Manor's got a little bit of that element to it. If you haven't gotten to check out any of the spoilers, I'll go ahead and leave a link the most recent preview video from the official Wizards account in the description, where a lot of them are revealed. Parts of the story are also revealed, different mechanics. So, Athena, I can't wait to see what you picked in particular, because you're a brewer. You're somebody who's known for brewing in our Discord. What card did you go with from Karlov Manor as your pick?
So I went with a pick that like no one is talking about this card, and I think this card is like way more insane than anyone's giving it credit for, and that's Axebane Ferox. It's
Ooh.
2 green for a 4/4 Death Touch haste, and it has Ward with the new Collect Evidence for 4. So the opponent has to have mana value 4 or greater in their graveyard in order to target this, and then they have to exile those cards from the graveyard.
That's
So
wild.
yeah, and like this card to me reads, if you have a way to keep your opponent's graveyard exiled, or at least keep the bigger cards exiled out of it, this is just hexproof.
Yeah.
And it's actually better than that, because you can bait your opponent in that Ward is a triggered ability. So your opponent targets this with like Go for the Throat, and then you like tap your Armored Scrapgorger and exile their Shieldred from their graveyard, and now they no longer have 4 mana worth of stuff in order to pay the cost, and it fizzles. This card reads as absolutely insane with me, especially from having haste. So for like these green aggressive decks, we didn't really have a Forge in standard that could work well off of a 2 mana dork. This is that card, and it works beautifully with like Cemetery Prowler, Armored Scrapgorger, and other like cards that are already in green. So this is like my top pick so far.
Okay. I love that pick. Honestly, genuinely, I love the idea of that ward being an almost impossible condition to meet in some cases. So, yes. Basically hexproof. Very cool. And I have the card up on the screen for the viewers at home as well. Griff, what's your pick?
So for me so far, the card I find most interesting is Agris Kos, Spirit of Justice. It's 2 a red and a white, so it's sliding right into our Boros decks. It's got a big butt, so it avoids cut down. But what I really find interesting about this card is the suspect mechanic. So with Agris, it can act as removal without shoving a bunch of actual removal spells in the deck. So you can keep that aggressive mindset, you can keep attacking, and you're still gonna keep chipping away at your opponent's board state without wasting mana to kill their creatures.
I like that. I like that utility. That's very cool. How do they keep doing it? How do they keep designing mechanics that are actually going to see play? Lost Caverns of Ixalan, I think, was a big shift in their design strategy towards mechanics that actually see play and aren't just like one-time things for that set, as is typical for Wizards. So I'm surprised to see mechanics that are going to get some play, in my opinion. My pick for my favorite card, from the spoilers I've seen is an angel, because I'm all about certain kindred. Angel is one of those, but Aurelia's Vindicator. I love when we see new angels. It allows my Pioneer Angels deck to get a look at something new. This is a 4-drop, including 2 white in the cost angel. Flying Lifelink. Lifelink is great, especially because we just got Resplendent Angel. I'm looking for ways to make that go off. So Lifelink with a 4 power, 2 toughness angel, ward 2, has disguise X, 3 and a white. The X is significant here when the Vindicator is turned face up. So if you recall, disguise is a little bit like morph, and then if you pay that extra cost, you get extra abilities when it turns face up. Exile up to X other target creatures from the battlefield and or creature cards from graveyard. So that could go along with that mechanic we were just talking about. When Aurelia's Vindicator leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to their owner's hands. So has the possibility of disrupting some board states or disrupting some enemy graveyards, and also providing lifelink for a deck and an archetype that needs it. So Aurelia's Vindicator is my pick. Genuinely, I can't wait to brew for Karlov Manor. Anytime a new set comes out, I brew, and I try to come up with content as quickly as possible, just like the other content creators. So regardless of whether there's an early access or not, you'll definitely expect to see some content from me for Karlov Manor, which releases on Arena February 6th and in paper officially anyway on February 9th, not counting your pre-release events. But let's go ahead and shift to our second story in this segment. Our second story concerns the competitive scene. And I'm going to need some guidance for this, because I'm not somebody who is a veteran to the competitive scene. At one point I was, and then, for a long time I didn't play Magic. I played casual Magic, and I'm just now this year getting back into competitive paper. So, I'm going to lean on Griff here to let me know basically what this story means for the rest of us. I have some speculation, but Griff knows the competitive scene just a slight bit better than I do. What's the story here, Griff, regarding SCG and the future qualifying MTG events? Because I know there have been some concerns raised about this story. SCG, by the way, is taking over some of these qualifying regional events and providing the pathways to the Pro Tour for competitive players. So some concerns have been raised, like, are these events going to get coverage? Is it really going to improve the experience for competitive players seeking spots? What's your take, Griff, on this shift away from DreamHack and towards SCG?
So for me, it's really a mixed bag, because we were all just at DreamHack. We saw how amazing of a show that they put on, just across the gaming scene. Like, everything you could want was there. The problem with DreamHack, though, was outside of the main event, as far as Magic goes, there wasn't a whole lot else offered. So you were either grinding away in the regional championship, or you were finding something else to do. What Star City Games does better than probably anybody is hold a Magic convention. It is 3 days of nothing but wall-to-wall Magic. Like, it's been some of the most fun I've had over the last couple of years since we've gotten back into playing paper again. And I know they can bring the scene. Like, I'm not worried about them holding a tournament. And as far as coverage goes, they've had it. I know they've done coverage. I'm sure once we get back into high-level competitive play, they are going to up their need for coverage, and they'll take care of us, and we'll be able to follow along and watch the premier tables. And I'm not worried there personally. I think Star City Games will take care of us on that end.
Thank you, because as you know, coverage is a huge thing for us. Being able to see the matches, see how they're played out, analyze, get data. That's a huge thing for us. So I worry, right, that coverage is a big concern for me. But thanks for breaking that down. I think a lot of the news on this that's been reported has been generally positive, and it has said that the experience is going to be a bit more streamlined for players looking to qualify. And one of the big announcements I think was that they will no longer, like it used to be that if you qualified for a spot, that you were no longer able to compete in any of the RCQs, any of the qualifying events beyond that, are able to grind those out. So it really limited your calendar of what events you were able to play and practice in. Um, that's no more going to be the case, uh, according to the takeover. And just to clarify, I know that this takeover is happening after this fall, with I believe the event in DC is going to be the first time that they're taking over. So those changes won't happen until then. Regardless, I'm excited to see where this goes, to see how Star City handles all this, and whether they do a great job of it. All right. I know I personally am looking to getting back into paper, becoming paper fit, so to speak. I got to work out some of the cobwebs from just playing digital Magic these past few years. And honestly, Arena just automates so much for us that you can develop some bad habits, I hear, from not playing paper in quite some time. Athena, where are you on that? Have you played paper Magic before? Are you looking to get back into it as well?
So never played Paper Magic before. I was looking to getting into it for this season. Unfortunately, the price is like way higher than I can like reasonably like think about outside of brewing, which obviously is not going to be great for anything competitive.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Like I was really sold on like, oh, like let's just get blue white mid range because it looks like probably one of the best decks in the format, and let's go take it to my LGS now that they're doing standard stuff and try it out. But that deck's like over $500 and rising as we speak. And if I can buy Pioneer blue white control for $500, why would I want to buy blue white mid range and standard for that price when the cards are going to rotate and the meta shifts more often, and like you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a great investment on my end. So I might do something. My RCQ happens after Karlov Manor releases, so I might do something brew wise with it, if I can warrant the price.
Yeah, I totally get that. That's exactly where I'm at as well. I have the cards for Boros aggro, but what if I change my mind? What if the meta shifts after that release? So I have to be prepared for that shift as well. Let's move on to our final segment. We've decided to name this one finally the Frontline Rebel after another Magic card. But questions from the front lines of MTG, of content creation, whether it's about MTG or content creation or any adjacent news bits, ask us your questions. Today, we have more questions from the Rebellion Discord. We have quite a few to get to, with some even directed at our guests in particular, and myself from Darth Rictus of the Darkstream. I hope y'all are ready to be on the hot seat. He really does put a lot of thought into his questions, and that's going to be quite evident today. But first up, though, before we get to that, we have a question from Matt961 asking. Here's the question: how are you hedging your card purchases, your wild cards, towards rotation? So basically, I guess to reword the question, how much are we saving towards rotation? That is set to occur actually with Bloomborough releasing in Q3 of this year. No specific dates on that yet. I presume October-ish. But how are we saving towards that versus how much are we spending today in the current competitive scene in Standard? I guess is the question. Um, I'll answer this first. I'm gonna say not at all. I don't worry about that at all. I go full steam ahead, but I'm a content creator, so don't go by my standards. I have to have everything right when it releases. Um, so until about the month before rotation, then maybe I'll start to hesitate if I need anything further than what I already have, then I'll hold off. But I'm personally very competitive, especially when it comes to arena. So if a deck requires something rotating out this year, I'll still use it. In fact, I'm now trying to look at sets that are pretty old, like the 4 sets that are rotating out. New Capenna, Kamigawa, and the 2 Innistrad sets. I'm trying to find my spice there. But how about you folks? How are you feeling about rotation, spinning wild cards?
So I am someone that actually does like look out for when rotation happens.
Hmm.
When it comes to my arena wildcards, I thankfully have been playing long enough on arena that like I just happen to have most of the cards from like the sets that are rotating out. I kind of came back during Innistrad Crimson Vow,
Hmm.
so I was around for that standard, and I've been around ever since. So I have all the cards needed for there. But if I were someone that is like limited on wild cards and is like getting ready for like building their own collection, I would definitely focus on like either the sets that have come out like this year or the sets that came out last year. The
Okay.
sets that are going to be in for a little bit longer, just so you can feel confident in your purchases, unless you're doing something that you're also going to use in another format. So like things like Wedding
Ah,
Announcement, like that gets played all the time in Pioneer/Explorer, so that's a fine purchase. Dual lands, fine purchases, but other than that, like I would probably hold off if you're still building your collection.
that's a very good caveat. Yeah, I totally agree there. Um, our next question all comes to us. All the next questions, actually, the rest of them for this segment, come to us from Darth Rictus of the Dark Stream. Here we go, guys. Gut check time, right? For Athena and Griff, and we'll start with Griff for the response. Here's the question. Darth Rictus asks, let's say you win a tournament, but get DQ'd for having a high quality fake in your deck. So you bought and paid for this fake as though it were the real thing. Should you be allowed to play with it? If so, why? Um, Before you answer, I believe this actually did happen to someone recently. That's probably where he's getting this from. But Griff's, what's your response?
So, at the end of the day, you really can't argue the DQ. It's going to come down
Yeah.
whether you like it or not. My my issue here is if I bought it without any indication that it was fake, went through the entire tournament without anybody else having any indication that it was fake. Why is it coming up at the end of the tournament? All of a sudden, I'm getting deck checked, and somehow somebody else who hasn't had my cards in their hand all weekend knows that one of my cards is a fake. Like, I've got way too many questions for how this whole thing transpires. Like,
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I'd question the scenario too. I agree with you. Athena, did you have any thoughts on the question?
I mean, it's a little hard for me to have thoughts on this one just because I haven't really played paper tournaments at all. I think like the only thing I'd want to add to this is like, I mean, if it's completely expected that if you're like doing like a Wizard sponsors tournament, that they would want you to use their cards rather than fakes because they're making
Hmm.
money off of those cards.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but I mean, if you're doing something like, I don't know, like some third party event, like I don't know, say like something like the pizza box was like a paper tournament, right?
Hmm.
Does it really matter if you got DQ'd for fake cards at that point, or like you know what I mean? Like I think one of the, like I've talked about in the last question, like one of the big barriers to paper magic is how expensive stuff is. Um, so like my personal opinion, like I don't care if someone like cheats to get their cards, because it just seems like if you're gonna use that as a barrier of entry, like, oh, the people with more money can afford the best decks and therefore they are gonna be the ones that win more often. But like you can't expect Wizards to ever take that, to have that take. So
Exactly. Exactly. That's an important nuance, I think, is like personally I myself kind of agree with you. Like if I see a fake, uh if it's not a marked card, right? If they can't see it coming in their library, that's a different issue. But if it's just a fake on the front side, I'm not going to say anything. But at the same time, from Wizards' perspective, you can't expect them to be super proxy friendly. That being said, I do go to an LGS that has vintage, and they allow for up to 10 proxies, I believe. So there is some kind of leniency, I think, present in some LGSs for proxying cards. But in any case, let's move on to our next question. For Athena specifically, this next question, Darth asks, How many hours of testing do you believe one should put in for a major event, and why? Wow, Darth, that's a zinger of a question, but definitely a good one. So, Athena, you're on the hot seat.
So, man, I most of my background in anything competitive for any kind of game ever comes from League of Legends.
Hmm.
Um, and I know, like, so my perspective is probably a bit skewed because I'm used to storylines of teams practicing like 13 hours a day for the entirety of the year in order to win the tournaments they're trying to win.
Hmm.
um, I would probably say, like, realistically, you should put in enough time that you've had like at least like 30 or something reps against each of the decks you expect to face. Like that would probably be like a good estimation of something like that. But I don't really know how much practice matters, because also matters, like the quality of practice matters a little bit more than the quantity too. um, like, you can practice on arena all you want, but like let's
Yeah.
be real, we've seen arena opponents do some really stupid things. you
Yeah.
know uh, I, I
Yeah.
can't find an arena Golgari player that can pressure me at all on any deck that I play. Arena Golgari players don't know how the deck works, but then I go play against like Rictus or Optimal playing it, and it's like, wow, okay, now I look like a terrible player. So it's all perspective.
Yeah, yeah, and that kind of touches on something else that came up this week, which was a team specifically asking. Granted, it was a pro team comprised of pro players, asking for an application process and entry fee to be able to play test with them. Which, I can kind of understand because you're getting experience with other pro players. There's a lot of high value to that in Magic. So yeah, the quality of testing matters a lot. I would definitely agree. But let's move on to the next question from Darth Rictus. This one is for Griff. Darth Rictus asks, in a world where toxicity is not only a mechanic in MTG, but part of handling the masses as a content creator, I guess I kind of understand what he means there. What boundaries do you think are important to maintain? Oh, wow. So we've actually touched on this before here on the podcast. But Griff, what are some healthy boundaries that you think should be set for content creators?
So we're gonna kind of touch on some of the things we've already talked about today,
Mm-hmm.
but deep down we've all got a little toxicity in us. We've all got a little animosity. We see what other content creators are doing, and we think that should be us. Why isn't that me? And you want to be there, and you kind of feel shitty that you're not. And we have to kind of remember that we're all humans. We're all in this together. For the last 2 or 3 years, we've all just been like names on a screen to each other.
Yeah.
So it's easy to let our emotions get away with us until we start running into these people in real life situations, and remembering that we're all the same. We're all the same. But we still need to get that toxicity out once in a while, right? You know who that toxicity probably needs to be aimed at? That company over there that's screwing their player base.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh goodness. Yeah, on Wizards screwing their player base. Like, I've watched like League of Legends stuff for a long time. Like, Riot Games is a company that I think they can learn from this, because Riot does a really good job at supporting their content creators, even some of their smaller ones.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more of that from Wizards.
It's free marketing. That's my whole thing. Is like,
Yeah, exactly.
even just looking at it from a practical perspective, it's free marketing and you don't have to really pay too much for. So yeah, it'd be in their best interest and it would be a positive net gain for the community. Yeah, lots to say on that. We'll definitely have to talk more on that in a future episode. But last question from Darth Rictus. God, it feels like a test. It's from me. Darth Rictus asks Max, you've walked the bridge of building content with a team versus building content on your own for your personal channel. So what are some pros and cons of each, and what would you recommend to newer content creators? Wow. I I definitely consider personal content creation like something you do for your passion's sake as a content creator. In other words, make the content that you would yourself love to see or be entertained by that's not out there. Pay attention to the content creation meta, react accordingly to it. Whether you take on some of those tactics or you react against them. Personal content creation is really where I love to flex any of the ideas that come to me spontaneously. I like to try to have fun with those ideas there. Especially in the beginning, right? Because one of the things about content creation people don't tell you is that before you know it, you can find yourself pigeonholed into a specific niche of content. Your fan base won't let you out of that, or they'll complain when you do try to get out of it. So for that reason, I always say creating for a team is a bit different. Creating for a team, you're coming together to fulfill a mission, carry out a goal. It requires a lot of human cooperation, right? You got to work with these other people. And in our case, we're really trying to build something for the competitive community across many different platforms. Really try to be the future of MTG competitive content for everyone, even for more casual players. And we want to serve that community, serve that niche, fulfill that mission. So sometimes that means setting a trend that flies in the face of what everyone else is doing, what everyone else is trending. Really pulling what I like to call a lucky number 11. If anybody's seen the Josh Hartnett movie, essentially do your thing in one direction while everybody's distracted by everything going on in the other direction. To summarize, if you're a new creator, find your tribe. That's really the best advice I could provide, especially if you want to build for the future, make the community you're involved in better. There's nothing better than having a team at your back, really supporting you, giving you instant feedback. That being said, make sure you have an honest team that's with you, that's been tested, people you can count on to be honest with you. Really, that's a discussion for another time, but that has a lot of value to it too, and it's a little bit undervalued today in content creation. But regardless, if you're out on your own, do it for passion. Begin with what you already know, steadily improve. Audiences do love that. But if you really want to fulfill a purpose or, fill a gap in the community, I think team content's really where it's at. Yeah. I'll close out on that. But, thank you for your questions, Matt, Darth Rictus, and folks at home. If you'd like your MTG or content creation related question asked and answered on the show, submit it to the comments below. Send us a message on our Discord. A lot of you have been asking about how to join the community, support the community. This is one way you can do that. Links in the description to the Discord. Go check that out. Join. You can ask us any questions. Just be sure to tag it for the mailbag or for the new name of the segment, the Frontline Rebel. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank each of our guests, Griffin Rider MTG, Athena the Bun, and let's leave like we do in typical fashion with letting folks know where to find each of these wonderful people. We'll start with Griff. Griff, where are you at these days?
Well, it's time to get back on the grind, and I think I'm gonna do some late night testing streams. Get back in the field for playing these decks that I know I need to be ready for come RCQs. So look for me in the middle of the night when nobody else is watching.
Oh yeah, dude, I'll raid out to you if you're streaming, and I'll leave some links in the description for Griff and for Athena. Athena, where can folks find you these days?
So, I mean, like, same thing as normal. Like on Twitch, my streaming days are now Tuesday and Wednesday because of a little mix-up. But on the YouTube side, still working on that, still trying to get that set up and trying to find content that I'm like happy to make rather than just making something for the sake of making something. So probably something to do with Explorer content more than standard, because that format's just way more fun to me.
Fuck yeah. I would definitely advise you and anyone at home thinking about making content, definitely start with the content you enjoy, because it's easy to get burnout in the content game. But in any case, I'll leave links in the description to both of these wonderful creators from the Rebellion. Be sure to catch the most recent State of the Meta. It's really getting wacky, just how many decks we track week to week in Standard now, right up to the release of Karlov Manor. I can't wait for y'all to see tomorrow, or if you're watching the premiere right now, in just a minute, how things have panned out over the last week. But until next time, untap, upkeep, resist.
Resist.
Have a good night, everybody.